And we're live. Dan knew how to use this quicker than all of us. Hey, everybody. Wanted to welcome you to an awesome RevGenius event. Really appreciate you all being here. We're going to be talking about community driving revenue. All you need to know in an hour's time, but we're going to get close to it. But I'm literally joined by two of the most powerful, knowledgeable, kindest, best community leaders in all of software as a service and beyond. I have Daniel, the VP of community at Apollo, and Monica, the global head of community at Canva. How are both of you?
Fabulous. Internet
Really,
is back.
really happy to be here.
So really excited to dive in. Both of you are in probably most of the guests' tech stacks. They've seen the movements that you all are creating, and it's so powerful. So we're going to dive in straight away. I'm just curious to set the stage, because community means something different to every company and to every person, really. How do you both define community in your current work environments? Let's start with Monica.
So at Canva, community is everything. It's been everything since day dot. And the way that we look at it is a group of people who have a shared interest, specifically across verticals. So what we see is we have teachers that have a very unique use case for Canva in their classrooms. We have small business owners that have a similar or a different but similar love for Canva and how they use it to run their businesses. We have creators. We have so many different types of people using Canva. And so for us, community is the swath of different use cases that we nurture and make sure that we're speaking to the folks in a way that we can advance the product to suit their needs. And for us, it's very much like word of mouth marketing at its finest. The community has largely propelled Canva's impressive growth over the last 10 plus years that the product has been out. So really it's how can we continue to deliver value to the top people that are using the product through and through every day. And yeah, ensuring that we utilize it, community in a business sense, to act as a growth and engagement lever for us. So word of mouth compounded across different use cases, different markets, different languages. That's kind of how we look at it.
Where does the Canva community live?
Across multiple, it's very decentralized. So we kind of embrace this decentralized model. So we don't have our community living through maybe like Khoros or another platform that pulls them into Canva itself. Our community is in some ways managed by Canva community managers. So we have a number of Facebook groups, Telegram groups across different languages for teachers, for small business owners, for freelancers. And then we have people that are part of our network. They're part of our advocacy programs that they'll spin up their own communities. So there's Canva for churches. And that's a really popular Facebook community with hundreds of thousands of members. So it's both run by us, and it's also, we embrace the decentralization of it. If somebody wants to spin up a community for their very unique use case, we more than embrace it, and we look to empower them to do that.
I love it. And your focus, is it more, and I don't want to, I think I know the answer to this, but is it more for like making sure your users are successful or driving demand of new users?
For community, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. So community contributes largely to our MAU goal, so our monthly active user goal. There are some ways that we do contribute to revenue. I know this is a revenue conversation, so I'll be mindful to like put those use cases loud and clear. But really, community at Canva is around supporting the monthly active users, whether they're using the product for free or they're paying for a pro account, a team account, or an enterprise account. So we look to nurture and support all of the Canva users, regardless of whether they're paying or not. And last thing I'll say is one of the unique things that I think sets Canva apart from potentially other SaaS tools is like from the get-go, we've wanted to build a product that you don't have to ever pay for and still get tons of value out of it. And I think that decision made early on has kind of spurred the growth that we've seen today, where people are extremely passionate about it, because even if they use the product for free, they can accomplish like a ridiculous amount of stuff using all of the templates and all of the different options that we offer them. Yeah, and I'll stop there.
No, yeah, we'll dive into all that. Now, Dan, community, what does it mean to you all?
Well, firstly, it's a real honor to be chatting with both of you. You're both experts of community, Jared, with what you've built at RevGenius, and Monica, like doing community at Yelp and all these other places for so long. It's truly an honor. And there are a couple things you actually said that really resonated with me. And that like community isn't your Slack group. It's not your fixed community. It is a decentralized thing. And how I define it is a community is a space where people who aren't explicitly paid to do so freely exchange knowledge and information. What I love about how you articulated it, Monica, is it's like community is something that you don't control, but you can kind of guide, and you can be there and support people, like the Canva for Churches group, right? Like just being able to be there and give back to those who are building communities effective. And then the other aspect I love about kind of some of the similarities between Canva and Apollo is we both have this goal to make our product accessible. In Apollo, the vast majority of our users are actually free users. You know, we're using it across 500,000 companies now. We've got millions of users, and a lot of them use it for free. And when you have an incredible product like a Canva or an Apollo, and your goal isn't to extract as much financially as possible from your users, but it's to give as much as possible, that in a lot of times lends itself to this nice organic community motion where people just want to share and be excellent within something that they have genuine passion about. And the job, I think, of the modern community manager is just to ensure that those people are heard, are listened to, feel valued, and then learn as much as possible from them. And then eventually, by giving to those who are already giving, who are already evangelizing, that will create the groundswell for your product. It will eventually translate to revenue in terms of referrals or monthly active users or happy users who get more of their product because they've learned how to utilize it more in a community. And that creates feedback loops that ultimately will uplift your brand.
Dan, where does your community live? And I'd be stupid question following what you just said, but I'm curious to hear.
Yeah, so in the past, I was a general manager of a community called Modern Sales Pros. And this was years ago. And it was basically, it became like the front line of a battle between Sales Loft and Outreach, where they were like, we want to sponsor the community. We want to sponsor the community. Take some money. But then the question becomes like, you know, managing that from the community side. What is the actual goal that these companies are trying to do? Well, they're trying to have a presence amongst those spaces or people who hold influence. So for me, where does the community live? It's kind of everywhere. We do have our own Slack group with about 2,000 members. That's for account executives that want to be better about sales and using Apollo. But I'd say a lot of the juiciest community stuff happens on LinkedIn. We actually had something a while back where someone was like, they said something negative about Apollo, and they were like, everyone's just getting paid to promote Apollo. And there must have been 200 comments from people that we know that we built a relationship with. It was like, hey, I just love Apollo. I don't get paid to promote it. Well, like, fun fact, that 10 days of controversy were the 10 best days of registration and demo signups in our company's history. So in a lot of cases, like, community is wherever the spaces are that are influencing your buyer. That's where community should be. And then it's like, okay, well, what is community? Community can just be a person who loves your brand, who advocates for you. So then the question is like, how do you reinforce pro advocacy behavior across all of these digital and physical spaces that will hold influence to your future buyer or your current customer? So the long way of answering your question is Our community is all over. It's in the internal marketing team meetings of our clients. It's at the happy hours of RevGenius. It's on LinkedIn. It's on Facebook. It's on Reddit. It's in Slack. And what we focus on is building relationships with the people who will represent us across those spaces versus trying to own those spaces ourselves.
I love both of your answers, and I've been saying community transcends platform for some time. You try to get everybody in one platform, and you both do it a little differently. And by the way, for the audience, if you have a question, ask it either in chat or the Q&A. We'll take them at a certain point. But like with RevGenius, we have 42,000 people in our Slack. Those people go to other places. And for us to be myopic and think that they should just come, like we'll meet a lot of needs. We won't meet every need. And we should facilitate that. And what I love about what Dan and Apollo does is you are wonderful with bringing community onto social. I wrote about your one example that you're alluding to, and that was wonderful. What I love about Canva and Monica, I don't want to say you took a play out of anybody's playbook, but there's some similarities to what Notion used to do, like allowing the groups to foster community on their own. And this is something that I think this is the combination of both what you all do is like, oh, it would be so epic. How can I get people to organize on their own around something? I think you need a product, and I hope everyone here took away some pretty good stuff there. But now getting a little more metrics driven. So the takeaways in the beginning: community transcends platform. It's not just launching a Slack group; it's being everywhere your members, users, etc., call them members, are, because they're humans. But looking at metrics, so you have this is great. What metrics actually matter the most to you? I'm curious to hear both of your North Star metrics to track community health, engagement, make sure that you're on the right path. We could start with Dan for this one.
Sure. A lot of marketers don't like to tie themselves to this, but the top line community metric is always going to be revenue or qualified accepted meetings. And like, okay, I'm not saying, hey, you take a community action, it's like there's X revenue associated with this, but you should be able to prove directionally that when something happens on community, it supports you. Like an example of this is direct web traffic, right? So attribution can be so confusing, right? Let's say you take out, you bid on your own keyword. So someone Googles Apollo.io and they click on that link. It says, use Apollo. They scroll past the 25 competitors who are bidding on our keywords right now. And then demand gen's like, nice, our ads worked. But like, what actually caused them to Google in the first place? So I would actually say that like, if community is about creating moments that highlight your brand in an authentic way, by having the storyteller of that be someone external to your paid apparatus, and then that creates a moment that should reflect itself in web traffic. A lot of people are really hesitant to be like, oh, I want to be KPI'd based off like the core essential brand indicators. But if you really are building a lifted community, it is things like that: share of voice, direct web traffic, free signups, registrations, demo requests. Those are the kind of the top line metrics. And then you can get a little bit more granularly: total impressions from user generated content, number of referrals sent by the communities you have. If you have a fixed group, then you're looking at the number of independent posters in that Slack group, the number of replies per thread to see that the content's actually valuable, the decreased like requests from CS, so the reduced ticket burden, things like that. It's not always easy to track. So what I like to do is try and make big public brand plays from a community perspective, and then directionally show, hey, has this impacted things? Hey, we noticed when we started doing a takeover each week on social, and that's reaching 1 million people each week via organic impressions, there's a spike in the 2 days after that takeover. Those are the things that, like, if you prove directionally, it should be easier to get budget buy-in. So you can just focus on building relationships.
I love that I'm going to get two slightly different answers from both of you all. I sense.
I bet Monica's will be better. She's been in the space.
No,
You're like, yeah, I'm just so excited to
Monica's been
chat
a
with you,
VP of
Monica.
community since we've been a pup, but
No.
but somehow is younger than us. But Dan, like you mentioned, the part I love the most, like we ended up boiling down to like a little bit of the leading indicator with impressions. Like yes, revenue, but you're not going out and selling people. That would be the antithesis of community, right? Like that would make people run. But and then you mentioned LinkedIn takeovers to get impressions. So social media is massive for you, like with that. Do you find a lot of your times focused on that as a
Yeah,
result?
sometimes I was talking to my brother the other day, and I'm like, the last 3 months, Apollo has added more followers on LinkedIn than Zoom Info, Outreach, SalesLoft, even Gong, like our North Star in terms of brand engagement. And my brother's like, are you over rotating on LinkedIn?
Right.
Sure, maybe potentially, but the reality of it is the platform just passed 1 billion users. Like in the B2B SaaS space, the organic reach there is still probably the best of any platform. And it's like if you're one of the top brands across an entire platform, the platform for business, that will impact. It will impact your stuff. And what's interesting is like talk about it being trackable. Like I don't want everything to be trackable because it feels kind of transactional. I'm not going to be like, hey, I love that you love Apollo. Now post about it. Here's the UTM parameters. But this happened once where we sent Sarah McNamara, who was like a senior marketing operations person at Slack, and then she got acquired. She's at Salesforce now, and she's amazing. I forget what we did. We did something nice for her. And then she made this post, and it was about, this is while I was at Chili Piper. It was about the brand reach, or about the way that inbound lead routing works. And then she just UTM'd it herself without being prompted. UTM, Sarah McNamara is awesome. So I was like, oh, weird. Well, I have the UTM. I might as well look into it. It drove like 800 people to our website. And then I was able to go into the likes of her post and cross-reference that against pipeline. And we're talking hundreds of thousands in pipeline. We're talking, almost 1,000 people driven to the website by one post. So it's like, yeah, I care a lot about social media impressions. Yeah, they've been a major driver between Apollo's success over the last year. And if we're thinking of doubling those results again, I'm thinking of a way to double our reach on social media. So for sure, impressions are huge. It's really tough to prove this post led to this revenue, but if you can directionally show it in a couple cases, maybe you get your executives to post and they see it for themselves. It becomes a lot easier to operate in that space. And because all the other CMOs are like, show me the ROI of this specific LinkedIn post, there's less competition there. So by operating in the dark social space on LinkedIn, you're able to get a market advantage over others who might not be able to like take it at face value that your stuff's working. And then like, ideally your user generated content and your company page content, it ramps alongside share of voice and web traffic. That's what's happened at Apollo.
So I love what you do there. Devil's advocate, is it like a PR push? If you stop doing that tomorrow, in 6 months, I mean, sure, like would the results decrease quite a bit?
Yeah. Look at brands that have like disappeared. I'll highlight Drift, for example. Like when Dave Gearhart was there, they were doing their takeovers every week. They were all posting together. The brand was like hot. It was launching. Like, nobody hears about them anymore, right? Mm-hmm. An easy way to do this is just to tie a drop down on your demo form field. How did you hear about us? At Chili Piper, the last 3 months I was there was about 60% of all revenue heard of us first through social media or community. That's a pretty big deal. But then when that brand luster's gone, there are diminishing returns because like people are they forget things so quickly. They need to be reminded like every day that they should, churn off Zoom Info and Outreach and just replace it with Apollo. But if you don't have that constant drumbeat, a little bit of the luster is going to be lost, I believe. So yeah, it's very similar to PR. But the difference between PR is like in PR, you're talking at people, and in community, you're building lasting relationships with them. So when they say something and you build a relationship with them, they're much more likely to become a future distribution point for your brand because you kind of acknowledge them as human. So PR is kind of like a one-time input with a one-time output. Community is like a constant input that creates its own outputs, creates its own brand distribution channels. That's what makes it exciting. But as soon as you start ignoring everyone, yeah, you're gonna lose those gains.
Love it. And Monica, want to hear about what your North Star metrics are at Canva?
Oh man, so much of what you were saying, I was like, yes, like the only thing I was like, nope, for us it's not revenue. So like when we look at our North Star, revenue is not what we look at for our community building. For us, it's brand love. So we measure brand love across multiple different metrics. One thing that's unique about our community is like it comes alive virtually and in real life. So previously I mentioned that we embrace both like a centralized and decentralized format. Centralized meaning that we have community groups that are run by our team of community managers all over the world, from Turkey to Japan to the US. And then we have the decentralized, which are community-led networks, Facebook groups, Telegram groups, Discord channels, like you name it. And there are folks out there that are running these different communities. So what we're actively trying to do is grow our network of advocates. So when we look at our community flywheel, we have awareness, loyalty, and advocacy. And each one kind of like fuels the next one. So on awareness, our community team will appear at a conference and they'll be met with pretty much like a local team of Canvassators. These are the advocates that we've officially recognized. We send swag out to them. We send them really unique opportunities. And then we'll even bring them out to these events when we're popping up from an official like company standpoint. So our community manager will be alongside a small team of Canvassators, and they'll be leading trainings and workshops, helping people that are attending these events understand how to use Canva for their particular use case. And I guess if we look at revenue, kind of like a natural byproduct of that community engagement are the leads that those engagements will produce. It's not necessarily the reason why the community team is setting up there and engaging with people that might not know Canva, but it certainly then kind of bypasses, well, not bypasses, but a byproduct of that are the leads that those types of events might generate. So brand love for us, I kind of mentioned that the awareness piece is us showing up at an event. That's just one example. From those events, we then find people that are looking to engage even further and take that use case even to gain more knowledge. How might they actually leverage it for their business or in their classroom? So from there, we would recommend that they join one of these different groups where it's very peer-to-peer driven. And Dan, to your point, like the best thing that you can have as any company is not have to sell the messaging yourself, but let the users speak for the company and explain like what is it that they like about the product, how are they using it on a day-to-day basis. And that creates an aha moment for somebody who's new and coming in and looking to understand how they might leverage the product more. From there, we go to the next part of the flywheel, which is that advocacy piece. So from these different groups, we're able to identify people that are looking to take that relationship even further with Canva. Maybe they want to go study. And so we'll invite them into this advocacy program. They can either become an expert. This is a very, very elite community. It's super small, and that's by design. Many of the experts that we have in our community are people that have built a business on Canva and around Canva, and that business runs in many different ways. So what we look to do is support their efforts as entrepreneurs that are using Canva, whether they're selling courses or they're doing trainings for Toyota. Like these are people that are super knowledgeable about the product, in some cases more so than I am. And then the tier below them are these Canvassators, and these are folks that they're moderators. They're helping moderate, let's say, the Reddit community that we don't run, but is run, by community led. They're local leaders, so they might be people that are parts of like the education system in Japan or in the US. and they're looking to help others really understand the tool better. And then there are also content creators. So they're folks who are producing really interesting, amazing, high quality content, not prescriptive. We're not asking them to do so, but they really impress us with the ways that they're showing the creativity that they have with Canva. And then we'll plug in those really unique use cases across to our social team for further utilization with that content creator. So that's a very wordy explanation for like our community flywheel of sorts. Might have felt like a lot, but we do try to keep it pretty simple with just these three: awareness, loyalty, advocacy, and then kind of whatever leads come out of that, we plug out to the sales team where relevant.
Monica, do you have an illustration of what you just said? Because that is phenomenal, and a lot of people could really use that as a takeaway. I'm curious.
Yes, I do have an illustration.
Is it
And
shareable to the public?
I didn't design it, but yeah, it's is it shareable?
Is it in Canva? Did you make it in?
Of course we made it in Canva.
Stupid question number one. I apologize.
We make everything in Canva. Yes, good question if I can share it. I'll look into it. It's internal only, but
sure.
I would like to open source more of the work that we're doing from the community side at Canva, and that's one of the things that I'd love to do more of in 2024. So maybe this will be the first thing that we do.
It would be so
I will
rad.
be a subscriber to that content.
Yeah,
count me in.
Monica, I just heard you speak about such a well-oiled plan. What are you going to add to it in 2024? Like what direction is, your community marketing plan going?
So I mentioned content creators last. Okay. And this is a newer, I didn't mention them last for any particular reason, but that was the last thing I mentioned. And this is a newer space for us on the community front that we're looking to nurture even further. So for us in 2024, it's really being able to plug in super talented content creators that we're seeing that are part of our community. When we look at working with influencers, for example, we look within. So we're very, strategic, I don't know if that's the word, but intentional maybe, of looking at who's part of our community rather than looking outside of our community to somebody who could plug Canva in like a traditional influencer client relationship. So that for us in 2024, we want to be doubling down on our content creators and specifically ensuring that we're supporting all of the audiences that we speak to today. So enterprise is huge for us, like it's always been, and we want to make sure that we're able to, kind of to your point, Dan, on LinkedIn, like making sure that we have folks, experts, Canvassers, these content creators who are speaking to the enterprise audience across the US and beyond. And then certainly AI, like we've rolled out so many new features across Canva with Magic Studio, and it's ensuring that from our community efforts, we're properly supporting all of the different audience verticals, from teachers to SMBs to enterprise, that we're fully supporting them with how do they actually incorporate the suite of AI tools into their daily workflows.
Now, this time in 2024, how will you know that the year's been a success?
That wasn't one of the questions in the speaking notes, Jared. No, I'm just teasing. How will we know that it's a success? So for me, it's ensuring that we've got international coverage. We have been really fortunate as a company to be available in over 100 languages. It's a blessing, and also it's really challenging, because when you deal with so many different languages, it creates a lot of complexity in how you market to all those different countries and how you properly service those communities. So success to me in 2024 is feeling like we've become a truly local product across all of our priority markets, and that we're properly servicing our enterprise users, our teachers community, our Canva for churches, or really whatever other
I love
unique
that.
use cases that we can identify.
All right, this is a question in that sheet that I gave you. How do you get all the stakeholders to buy in on this plan? Because you mentioned earlier that revenue attribution isn't a direct thing for Canva. How do you get, the buy-in from all of the folks at the top?
Yeah. So we have 170 million people using Canva every month.
Whoo!
It's really hard to
I'm one.
feel it's really hard to feel the impact. Like the number's so big, like how can you attribution is so difficult at this level of scale. It's much easier when you're a smaller startup just getting going. Like you can identify that this activity, this conference we did has led to a boost in signups or web traffic, whatever it might be. At the scale that we're at, it's not the case. And so when we look at attribution, it's always towards the fact that we're contributing to the growth of monthly active users. And that's why we focus so much of our efforts on the MAU metric and not on the revenue metric. But to the point I was just making, even with the MAU metric, when you've got 170 million people using the product every month, it's very, very challenging to say this effort led to this. One little thing that we are trying. So looking at geographically mapping of a community. So using Japan, for example, there are 47 prefectures in Japan. Prefecture is like how they just distribute the school system in Japan. Canva for Education is a huge priority for us. Just making it's a free to use product, but we want to make sure that we're allowing students and teachers to use the tool in the classroom. So with 47 prefectures, what we're looking at is ensuring that we have proper advocate coverage across each prefecture. So we're really strategic to say, well, these prefectures represent the majority population, so we should have more support in those prefectures. And the ones with less population, a lower population, might just need one person. And what we can do is we can track things like how many teacher applications are coming through in these smaller prefectures that might have been tied to a direct activity that we did, whether that be a mail out, really mail outs, like people still do these things, or some kind of webinar that might have been attended by 10,000 people in a really small prefecture where the CTA was claim your free account as a teacher, and we see the uptick, then that becomes a lot more measurable for us. So we do have efforts like that we can kind of hone in on the micro measurement. But to your original question, how do we convey this to stakeholders? It's we do monthly reports capturing all of the different activities. So we have inputs and outputs. What were the inputs? Like, what were the number of initiatives that were hosted by the community? And by extension, those advocates that are out there. The advocates, I'm going to stop talking because I feel like it's been a while. But the advocates, what's unique is they'll submit what we call kudos forms. So we give them kudos when they do like really amazing things outside of in their own networks and their own communities, and they self-report, and that's awesome. So we are seeing like all of these amazing initiatives that they are self-reporting, they're doing on their own volition, like purely intrinsically motivated, and then we'll take that and we'll put it into our monthly reports. So the end result is that the community feels like this really rich, really active, really engaging, dynamic, diverse, multilingual, like melting pot of energy. I don't know how else to put it, but it just feels very alive, and to me, that's community. It's like people doing things.
And I want to touch on that,
so
Monica.
eloquent and so amazing.
It's so good. I'm like, Monica, like, who do you know that's just like you that I could hire? Like, come on, you're incredible. But one thing I have a hunch where it's like, you talk about the impact of community, and like your customers are your ultimate distribution point for your brand. So Monica, I'm thinking about your infrastructure, and I'm like, I wonder, like these people in Japan who talk about Canva, let's say they talk about Canva twice a week, if you had never engaged with them, how often would they talk about Canva? And that's one of the first things we did at Apollo. Like anyone who said, hey, I love Apollo anywhere, we thanked them for it. And we built a relationship there. And like, let's say you're like, you go to the top of a mountain, you're like, I love Sarah. And then Sarah's like, I'm not going to say anything. Like that feels weird and awkward. And like, you're not going to do that many times before you're just like chilled off. So I think part of the beauty of what I'm hearing from you is it's like when you acknowledge someone for advocating for you and for building the community and give back to them, it makes them much more likely to do it again. So let's say on average, they would do it maybe once a month for 3 months and then stop doing it. But you build a relationship with them, they do it 4 times a week or 4 times a month for the whole year. You're actually looking at like a multiple 1,000% increase in advocacy per person. And then you compound that across the entire ecosystem of happy customers. And basically every customer, their impact as a brand distribution node will increase like 500 times or something crazy. So when I hear what you're doing, Monica, I hear like, damn, like that's a whole go-to-market for Japan right there. Like when your community is really passionate about things and they want to talk about it more. And like supporting them in their own language is also so powerful because it shows like you want to meet them where they're at and you care about them. And that is what can create this groundswell. So we see similar stuff at Apollo, but Monica, I just love all the stuff you're doing. It's really cool. And like sometimes when it just goes so well, and I'm thinking about making a joke about this because I kind of have brand privilege myself. Like I was at Chili Piper, the brand like exploded. Now I'm at Apollo, where we've increased all of our baseline brand metrics by over 1,000% in a year. And it's like, people know, like if you have a healthy community apparatus, it's incredibly evident to everyone. Anyway, I can answer that question too if you want to ask me, Jared, but I just wanted to build on Monica's stuff because it's like, that's really phenomenal work, Monica.
I'm
Thanks so
listening
much,
to
Dan.
I'm listening to all the granularity that you're doing, and it's spectacular. And the environment that you're building that gets people like hyped to self-report good stuff is exceptional as well. But
There's an
going
interesting,
yeah,
oh, sorry. Yeah, okay, last thing on
unpack
just like riffing on Monica's stuff. I feel like I could talk about that forever, but there's an
ripping in a
interesting
good way. That
stat,
is
riffing.
riffing. Got it.
There's an interesting stat that shows, and this is like so indicative of human psychology, right? If you are volunteering and doing something and you're not given more responsibility, eventually you'll tune it out, which is like, wait, what does that mean? Like life is just a constant chasing your own tail and like people always need more things. But like, that's what community is about. When someone leans in, you lean back in with them. And then next thing you know, they're like sending you self-attribution reports on everything that you want to do and you're not paying for it. And they benefit from it because in some cases they build consulting services around it, or it helps them build their brand, or they just want quality access to the best tools in education and things like that. So I just think it's really cool. Like community is about finding the people who want to lean in and leaning in more with them. There's 100 different ways you can articulate it, but I would say like that's it. It's the most basic level. Like who's advocating for your product? How do you build a relationship with them that benefits them? And then they'll do the rest.
I do think it's interesting to have a product that's so important to your life, right? Like Canva and what Apollo has been, but Dan, how you're helping it become even more so, right? Apollo has always been a great product, but you're helping it be like an essential everyday product to more and more people. When you build that, then they have to come back because they're using it every day, like often, and they're more likely to give you feedback on improving it because this is like their lifeline. Like, hey, I need AI into Canva because of A, B, C, and D, and you're more likely to ingest it. When you give them that, they're more likely to shout it like, oh my God, I gave them the hardest thing ever to do and they did it. Everybody, you need to use this. Here's how I'm hacking Canva on the $12 plan to get all this stuff. Like, great, do that. Or how I'm using Apollo to get my ICP perfect and using these different things. And it becomes so effing good and unique. I want to bounce past to Dan for and kudos to both of you all. Like I'm just sitting through a masterclass here as a pupil, but your 2024 community / marketing plan.
Oh gosh. Well, I want to touch on that last question really briefly first. Sorry, I'm going
Please.
off agenda slightly, but it's like the
It's all
easiest
helpful.
way for me to prove the success of the programs is to enroll executives into the programs. For us, community is at Apollo. These are the teams I manage. And I feel so lucky. I work with like the best team in SaaS. Our head of social media is Medjuli. We work together at Chili Piper. Our head of customer marketing is Taylor. We work together at Chili Piper. And we also hired a head of evangelism, that's Zoe, a head of field marketing, that's Kayla, and then we're building out the team more. But it's like when executive presence and social media and field marketing and customer marketing and community, which is our relationship across these groups, all sit under the same umbrella, it really helps them work with each other. And one of the easiest things we've found is to get executives enrolled in these programs. A great example is our CRO. Leandra Fishman has been like a genius. She was the former CRO at Intercom, SVP of sales at Twilio, and she's just like brilliant. And she's had 1,200 LinkedIn followers. So she joins Apollo. We work with her. We join her meetings. We take her knowledge. We turn it into posts. She becomes a partner. She reviews those. She posts those. When an executive gets hundreds of thousands of impressions on a post, and then through that post, they hire their next director of sales or whatever, or they have that aha moment themselves. They're like, oh, wow, like, yeah, I noticed personally that when I posted on LinkedIn, I drove pipeline with some of our largest clients. I drove adoption with some of our largest existing clients. I found net new things. I found recruitment. I found things like that. So it's like having your executives be part of the community strategy to me has always been the easiest way because it doesn't take that many cycles of success for people to see that. Okay, next on oh yeah, another easy way to prove success is just put a drop down on your demo form that says how'd you hear about us. It's an open field. Don't give them a pick list and then I'll be like, oh, I heard of it through Monica's badass community or whatever. For 2024, it's interesting because it's like I do think that the brand team at Apollo gets a lot of credit for the massive growth we've had over the last year. You know, we raised $100 million. We became a unicorn. We've been crushing it from the marketing side. I was talking to the team the other way and I was like, if we accept that we are one of the driving forces behind this, that means we need to accept that we need to double everything next year because that's the way when you raise venture, you got to grow really fast. So I'm really excited for the next year to kind of build out this team, to hire 5, 6 more people, to have a lot of the people I've been working with for years become managers. And like, there's some of the best people in the game. So I'm really excited for that. To expand our events presence massively. So a massive increase in events. We're talking doing 5+ events per month that are like our own hosted events, to double our reach on social, double our monthly followers from 5,000 to 10,000 a month. So it's not going to be easy, but essentially, like, we've noticed that when there's a drumbeat to our brand, like something that happens each week, that'll equate to revenue, that'll equate to pipeline. So the question is, like, how artificially and through user generated content and through paid partnerships can we have like a moment every single week? Every week. So that's kind of the big push for next year. It's like something relevant that Apollo can tell the audience about each week. And it's not like, hey, we have this new feature, although sometimes it will be that, but it's like, what's something that's relevant to our audience that provides value to them? And how do we reach, like, you know, about 1 million people every single week? So it's going to be a lot of work, but we got the team in place to do it. And I've actually never really managed a team that's been really well resourced. The last year was quite bootstrappy from a community perspective. So I'm excited to have some money to spend as well, partner with folks like you, Jared, and hire more incredible people.
Well, that's what's awesome about community. If you're bootstrappy, but you know how to rally the people, people could get rallied for a movement to help support what they're going for. I have one last question for my sheet, and then we'll go to some of the Q&A here. And this is just personal. Like what do each of you do that's like against conventional wisdom, but you've seen a lot of success from it, right? Like I want to start with Monica with this. like you have your flywheel and stuff, but like, and that's phenomenal. Maybe your answer is off of that, but I'm curious what you've brought in, like secret sauce type of stuff that's shareable.
I don't know if this is against conventional wisdom, but it's definitely a luxury that we have at Canva, being, just as successful as we've been fortunate enough to be. I have a team of community managers across our priority markets that are in-market experts. They're cultural experts. They understand the product. First and foremost, they were passionate Canva users before they officially joined the team. And then they understand their markets better than anyone. So I think for us, we've been very lucky to have these flag holders, flag bearers in every market that we want to be penetrating into, basically ensuring that we have local relevance, both in terms of content being created, which they focus a lot on, and then ensuring that we show up at the right places. So we're frequently at different local events, small to large, and we have they're helping us build a network of these advocates to encircle them in a way. So if you think about, an army, like they're the ones at the front, and then they've got a lineup of these amazing advocates supporting them. And then, like I mentioned, the geographic distribution, we're really intentional about the distribution of our advocates in these markets. So we have a pretty strategic community go-to-market strategy, which is very much centered on these community managers being our footprint, our key into all these markets.
Awesome. And Dan?
Well, I was told I was too old to participate in the local college LARPing group, but it's been really
What is that?
successful. I've been honing my skills. Oh, you wanted work stuff? I'm just kidding.
Oh,
I'm just joking. Yeah, I recently started participating in this like medieval reenactment foam sword battle group.
You did not.
Maybe traditional wisdom says I'm too old. But it's like one of the few ways I can convince myself to exercise.
If you don't have
I know
the
that wasn't
picture, it never happened.
Next webinar, I'll come down with like a long two-handed foam sword and like a shield or something. But it's fun. I get to dress like a knight. No, I'm kidding. So
Make
here's
sure
the
it's designed in
unconventional thing.
Canva before printing.
That it's like, if you hire right, your entire process of staff management changes entirely. Like if you hire people and then you set them up where they have transparent view into what their next promotion is and how, if they achieve something, it'll be the biggest thing they've ever accomplished in their career. It'll help them make more money. It'll help them do all this stuff. Then the role of a manager shifts from how do I extract as much as possible from my team, get them to work as hard as possible, to how do I create psychological safety for them so they feel inspired. Because it's like one incremental unit of work, that unit being time, does not matter versus the power of creativity. Like one of the most successful campaigns I've ever done is we turned all of our customers into Pokemon cards, our customer advisory group. And then Jared, I think you got a Pokemon card. And
Still have it.
Yeah, he still has it. And we asked him in this meeting, what's your top professional superpower and your work superpower? And then 3 months later, in the next cab meeting, they all got this deck of Pokemon cards. It had a LinkedIn URL that was a QR code. They were grouped by other peers they respect. And it's like the success of that didn't come from somebody working till 7 p.m. It came from someone feeling comfortable enough to be able to make mistakes and come up with bad ideas. And then people who are excited enough about work to push further. So at Apollo, we have unlimited PTO. I think that's kind of bogus. We do a 4-week mandatory minimum. So it's like when you have someone who maybe they've been overworked and their boss has been micromanaging them for years, and then you're like, I want your ideas. I want you to fail. I want you to make mistakes. I want you to take more time off than you've ever taken before. Then people stay on your team. They don't leave, and they just like outperform everyone around them. Like if I was working at a team who like a competitive marketing team, like let's say like Zoom Info's community team, and they're like exhausted and they're tired and they're not having fun, like they will not stand a chance against a team that is like really passionate about their work. And it's always been a struggle for me personally. My mom's like, Dan, how are you ever going to work when you can only focus on the things that you care about? She doesn't care like that. But in my head, this is like an old Jewish grandmother. But that's always been the secret. Like, I've had to work only on things that bring genuine passion. And if you can pass that passion to your team, they will just outperform everyone around them. So that's the unconventional wisdom, that like, if you prioritize the happiness of your employees and you're in a creative role like marketing, like that is the ultimate force multiplier. Like enabling people to feel comfortable doing things that are weird and different and making mistakes. Somewhat unconventional. Other people would say it's conventional, but it certainly worked for me. And the added benefit is that your team wants to follow you. So Taylor and Midgley both reached out to me after I left Chili Piper. And then we started already on step 5 at Apollo because we already had those norms in place.
I love that answer. And pardon me going in and out here. All right, let's go to the questions from the community that's here. So first and foremost, Monica, the number one upvoted thing was, can we make your flywheel into a playbook? We pretty much knew that would be.
Yeah, maybe.
Well,
maybe.
Get back to us about what can and can't be part of that, because that would be completely helpful for so many people. Now, some other stuff that's here and what, so, all right. I like this question. When you have so many things happening, and this is from Sunny, across different channels, community-led activities, launches in Japan, how do you easily compile all this data together for reporting?
I would never use the word easily. I wish I could. I wish there was some tool for anyone that's building tools. So we use a number of different tools. The one that we use is called Impact Radius. It helps us track our anybody who's on like an affiliate relationship. We can track things through that. We use Tagger Media for our content creators. That basically helps us figure out what was being said by whom, when, and how popular was it. And then those kudos forms, like we set that up through HubSpot. So we have a form that somebody can just submit into, and then it goes into HubSpot. And then we have certain automations set up through HubSpot. See, none of this is easy. It's just all clunky across several different tools. Dan, do you have a better solution for us?
I was like, Monica, we're speaking the same language. People are going to freak out when they see what we've done.
Google
so
Sheet.
I put this in the chat, but if you go to our wall of love, let's see, can we put this in the chat somewhere? I replied.
Yeah.
Yeah, here I'm putting in the wall of love. Like we do all of this stuff so manually. So I actually hired someone who's like a VA, but we might try and hire her full time. She's like amazing. And she's based out of Venezuela. And anytime anyone says anything positive about Apollo online, they get a note from her. Hey, I love this. It's so great. Can we add it to our wall of love? And what happens is when you take a one-off profession of love and then you turn it into a lasting digital asset, like not only does that build a relationship with someone, stewarding them towards greater levels of advocacy, but it's a public written commitment, which is quite powerful persuasively. So it actually pushes people closer into the reality of what they said. They say, I love Apollo. You're like, oh, we love that you love Apollo. They're like, oh, well, I mean, I definitely love Apollo. I said it, you said it, we both said it, it's been said. So in that process, we literally ask every single person how many impressions they got on their posts. So I will manually track all of that user-generated content internally and externally. It's millions of impressions per month. It's a lot of work. So that's one way that we track it. Another is through PartnerStack. If someone joins our community, they want to provide a referral, we can track that easily through PartnerStack. Another way that you can track it, and this is what I would suggest to the questioner, is so the tools, Christina, are testimonial.io is what we use for the wall of love. Good old Sweat Equity and an incredible VA is what we use to kind of expand these relationships and bring them, get the impression counts from them. But what I would suggest more than that is to just try and prove things directionally. Like I said, best 10 days in demo history coincide directly with this big report I wrote about this controversy about Apollo versus Zoom Info. So it's like, if you can look at social media moments or community moments that happen, like for example, the Inbound conference, we didn't do a great job with attribution there, but after Inbound, there was a massive spike in our tier 1 demo requests. So like, just get a couple of these things, prove them directionally, and then you can set up experiments to further prove directionally. We noticed that when this one thing happened and there was this social media moment, there was a spike in web traffic, demos. We have a PLG company. There was a spike in free signups. There was a spike in paid signups. We want X money to try and recreate that in a semi-organic way on these dates. And then we'll see if there's a spike in website traffic, a spike in demo requests, things like that. If you can prove this directionally a few times, put in a memo and send it to execs, they'll be like, well, like, it's very compelling, but also I noticed during these spikes, we literally didn't do anything else out of the normal apart from what you described. It's like, oh, wow, like, and here it happened in 4 cases. And then here I told you I could recreate it on this specific date, and I recreated it on this specific date. That's when you go through tracking things granularly and start tracking them directionally. And that's really the only way to operate, because it's like not trackable. It like, even if it was trackable, if I were to go out and try and quantify everything we did in community in the CRM versus directionally, the amount of time it would take to do that would decrease the total amount of time I can have building programs by maybe half. Like, it would take me half my time to track the stuff I'm doing. So I just don't track it. I track it directionally, and that allows me to put my effort into building programs and supporting the team versus like chasing attribution. Attribution is just like made up in a lot of ways.
I once said on social media, Apollo is rad, or something, semantics to that, positive stuff. And I received a note that asking me for impressions as well on that post. And I'm like, absolutely, I'll give this to you. And you're insane in the best way possible. Dad, like, I'm like, wow. So everyone in here, you want to see what they really do? Say something positive on social posts for both Canva and Monica's like, oh shit, we need a new process now because I want to, maybe.
I don't think the scale at Canva, it would be almost impossible to do. Like,
but it's fun.
There's so much love for Canva out there.
Thank you both for coming today. You mean the world. I thank everybody in the audience for the awesome questions, for listening, and for being a part. I got smarter. And also with RevGenius, we use Common Room in amongst some other stuff to connect the dots. Nothing is perfect. Common Room doesn't have, the partner stack part of it. We are a free community, so it's a little easier on that part. But as we add RevRoom, which is paid, we're going to bring in a different piece there to solve referrals and things to that effect. But thank you all for coming. And thank you to our wonderful co-hosts for being community experts and just being awesome, lifting the spaces that they're in.
Thank you, Jared. And Dan, loved it. I want to make sure we stay connected after this.
Yeah, we gotta chat. I feel like there's so much to learn, and it's awesome. Yeah. Also, for 2 such different companies, we have a surprisingly similar approach on community as like a decentralized place that you just kind of support. So I love it.
Prospecting with Canva is coming soon to a theater near you. Get the data from Apollo, send the message with Canva. Everybody wins.
Really?
I'm saying, like, because of this conversation.
Oh gosh. I was like, do we really need another competitor? Like,
no. I'm saying a partnership, everybody. I'm saying a partnership.
I'm kidding.
We need you all to partner. Anyway, have a good day, everybody. Thank you very much.